This episode of Manage Smarter is presented by Sales Fuel Coach, our adaptive sales coaching featuring 5-minute quick coaching personalized to each sales rep. Learn more about Sales Fuel Coach at salesfuel.com. Welcome to the Manage Smarter podcast with hosts C. Lee Smith and Audrey Strong. We're glad you're here for discussions on new ways to manage smarter, hire, develop and retain talent, improve results, and propel team performance to new heights. This is the Manage Smarter podcast.
You're in for a treat today. Our guest today, Teresa Rose. I've never met anybody like this, Lee. She's a business motivational speaker. Yeah. She's an author. She's a content development coach, stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what a combo. She's doing this with her shoulders like, that's
me. That's right.
Yep. She's our guest today on the Manage Smarter podcast. Welcome, everyone. I'm Audrey Strong. I'm the Vice President of Communications here at Sales Fuel.
And I'm C. Lee Smith, the President and CEO of Sales Fuel. Yeah, we met Teresa at the C-Suite Network Conference in New York.
Yeah, and then we saw her again in San Francisco. A delightful individual. Hi, Teresa.
Hello. How are you both?
We're great. We're now that you're here.
Excellent. Excellent.
So everybody, Teresa Rose, teresarose.com is the website, a mindful performance specialist. She works with and speaks to organizations and their people so they may show up more fully, connect more deeply, and deliver more powerfully at work and at home and all day long. Like I said, she's a speaker, content development coach, stand-up comedian, and award-winning author. The book, you got to get this, Mindful Performance, How to Powerfully Impact Profitability, Productivity, and Purpose. And you signed a book for me, Teresa. It says, Nail Every Performance. So we shall try to do that with you today.
Yes, let's try today. May the podcast gods be with us today.
That's right. Yeah. So many people that I work with and interact with in business where I give mindless performances. So I want to...
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, Lee, because part of what I do, in addition to being a keynote speaker, what I also do is just corporate comedy. So a lot of times what I'll do is if a client hires me for an opening keynote, what I will do is I'll go in the night before and I'll do 30 minutes of comedy. And my program is actually called Mindless Performances. And I do a take on the opposite of what we really should be doing when we're showing up to be as mindful as possible. And that's where the hilarity ensues.
Well, what does that sound like, Teresa?
Well, you'll have to hire me, Lee, and I'll
There you go. You don't make it. Come on.
I was going to do that anyway.
As a stand-up comedian, I have a lot of people that will say, "Tell me a joke," no matter where I am. I'll say, "Yeah, well, the joke is my dating record, and if you want to know any more, you'll have to pay me for it."
She knows her worth. There's value in good laughter.
You got that right. More funny, more money.
So there's a lot of talk about mindfulness, and a lot of people and a lot of our listeners might be like, well, I'm, leadership team and I'm keeping track of 1,000 things. Therefore, I'm mindful and I'm on top of all this. So I just don't know what you're talking about. So what is your version of mindfulness?
Well, mindful is definitely different than busy. So my definition of mindfulness is paying attention to what's going on, being aware of yourself, what's going on inside yourself and all around you, your surroundings, and then making conscious choices. Conscious. You're making a deliberate choice to do something. That's what I see as mindful.
Boy, the self-awareness part is something I see absent in so many people these days. They can spot it in somebody else, but being able to see it in themselves and see what they're doing and how they're being presented to other people, they just don't get it. So what can we do about those people?
You mean besides slap them with a cosmic 2x4? What can you do? Well, here's what I personally just suggest is don't worry about changing anybody else because that's, surrender, Dorothy. You're never going to make it. So it's really about yourself, committing to yourself. If you look at your life and you say, I don't like how it's showing up, whether it's I don't like how my business is showing up, I don't like how my relationships are showing up, my health, whatever it is, my level of happiness intrinsically, if you are less than satisfied in any of those areas in your life, it's really about looking within and what can you do to start to show up better. Don't worry about everybody else. And the way that you can then ultimately affect them is when you show up in a more present way with each other, with the people in your life, when you're actually there, listening, paying attention to them, focusing, being aware of your surroundings, they start to change around you too. So, that's the ripple effect is if we really do want to change our cultures, whether it's our family culture or our community community culture or our corporate culture. Start working on yourself. So that's the thing I tell leaders. It's like, stop trying to push this off onto HR or the supervisors or the frontline managers and think that they're going to try to change your culture. The reality is it starts from the top. It starts all around in every single position. That's how you start to change.
And model that behavior so that they can actually see that you're taking it seriously, and then they'll take a cue from that and then straighten up a little bit on their own.
Totally. I mean, how many times have you seen training going on in corporations and you know darn well that the C-suite levels, they're not even supporting this. They're not doing anything about it.
They're not even in the room.
They're not in the room. Exactly. And so it's like a parent and a child. The child isn't going to listen to what you say when they do what they do. They're going to watch what you do, regardless of the happy talk you might be spewing. And it's the same in our corporate culture.
You say there are 9 key areas of impact to focus on to fundamentally up-level your performance at work and at home, and thereby being happier overall. Obviously, don't give us all 9, but would you share 1 or 2 of them?
I would actually. I love sharing all 9 of them just really quickly because they're really they're really relevant. You know, it's about movement. How do we move our bodies in space and time, making sure we're utilizing our energy as best we can? Meditation. How can we quiet our minds, still our thoughts, so we can execute that executive level functioning? Manifestations. Are we clear about what we want and how we're going to get there? Putting those project management tools in place. Number 4, meetings. The collaborations that we have with each other. The connections that we have with each other. Are we being as mindful as possible in each one of those interactions? Mentors and masterminds, the people that we learn from, that we lean into, that are supporting us, because nobody does anything alone. So it's about the building of relationships. Messages, the words we use and how we use them. It's not good enough just to know what you're doing. You have to be able to communicate that in an effective, respectful way that's understood. The messes that we have in our lives, the physical messes when we are out of control with our space, and the interpersonal messes, the conflicts that we have within each other that are half complete. And the media, our relationship with those digital devices and how much time gets sucked away from those things. And then finally, meals and Z's, what we eat, how we sleep. If we are falling apart, our vehicles are falling apart, none of the other stuff even matters. So those are the 9 areas of mindfulness that I address, not only in my presentations, my keynote presentations, but also in my book and my podcast.
Which one of those 9 would you say is the most important, or maybe the linchpin that causes the other ones that fall into place?
You know,
they fall apart.
That's a great question. And it's hard for me to say because there's a couple that really pop up. The number 1 is meals and Z's. I mean, if you feel terrible, we all know this. If we are falling apart physically, we are not getting the sleep that we need. We're just not showing up. We're at 40%. You're exactly all day long. You're tired and you're hungry. You're not going to show up and make better choices. But second, close underneath that would be meditation. Get control of your thoughts, your mind. Be able to still your mind, because as the world gets more chaotic and crazier and louder and wilder and weirder, you must have the ability to be able to quiet your thoughts, still your mind, so you can stay centered and present.
Yeah, weirder is right.
Yeah.
But so it seems almost overwhelming, all 9 of these, and basically every aspect of an individual's life is there. I mean, to me, what I hear is you're saying, I got to ramp up my energy level to be mindful all day in all things.
Heck yeah. You can't just be mindful for a period of time. I mean, it's a way of being. It's not an exercise. Certainly, there are meditation exercises you can do, and there's movement exercises you can do. But it's about a mindset, and it's about a commitment to a way of being, which is awake and alert and aware of the people around you and yourself, and the choices that you make and the ripples effect. So, to me, and I just want to say, you know, my book, why I wrote it like this is I've been studying this stuff for 20 years. I live this. I help other people with it. You know, I owned an alternative healing center before I became a speaker. So it's very near and dear to my heart. And what I kept hearing is once people started to get that mindfulness was actually legitimate and it wasn't just 7th layer of the unicorn, tree hugging, dirt eating, granola worshipers, that it's a real thing, because they started to see it on LinkedIn, where they see, you know, leaders of top industries, top Fortune 100 companies. They are the ones that are utilizing mindfulness, and our premier athletes and the entertainers that we love and adore, and the PTSD sufferers are using it, and kids are using it to replace punishment with, when there's poor behavior. They knew they needed it. I no longer need to sell the idea of mindfulness. Everybody knows they need it, but they don't know how. They don't know how. So I took it upon myself to say, just write everything strategy for the last 20 years on how to do this stuff. And that's where this book came from. So do I expect everybody to be able to do 81 strategies in one day? Of course not. And this is a recipe book that shows you what you can actually do to start incorporating these things one strategy at a time.
Can you have emotional intelligence without being mindful?
No.
Yeah.
Of course not.
That's what I expected. Yeah.
The whole notion is, because being mindful is about paying attention. And the only way that you are emotionally intelligent to pay attention to the signs and listen to the language and watch their energy and all that, the only way you can do that is if you're paying attention.
I love the book because it has a lot of, mixed up fonts, and it's easy to read, and it's fun to take sections. The one section I really liked was spewer versus doer. I think we can all say that social media can really take a lot of wasteful energy directed toward it, and it also can be an emotional drain if you covet what other people's feeds show, or you feel less than,
Right.
that kind of thing. Can you explain spewer versus doer? Because I think I was guilty when I was younger and less wise of being a spewer, and now I like to just be a doer.
Right. Well, everybody knows, if you just think about it, and Facebook, I just use it as an example because that's my primary chasm of distraction. So I speak of that, but it's with everybody, and you'll know it instantly, and you start to get to notice that people have patterns. A Facebook spewer or a social media spewer is, and another thing. This is another thing that's wrong. And this is another thing that's wrong. And I hated this. And I have a terrible review of this restaurant, and I'll never have that happen again. That's a spewer. You always know that. They have occasional little,
sounds like a sewer, actually.
forced pictures of, smiles, but mostly they're spewers. And then there's people that are doers. I went and I did this, and I was at this place, and I experienced this thing, and I had this great meal, and here I am doing something to live life, to be a participant in their own life. And for me, that's like, ask yourself. And sometimes I'm a Facebook spewer. I try not to be, but sometimes I do. I get pulled in. And ask yourself, because here's the thing, if you have a lot of spewers on your feed, you're taking that information in. It's like watching a television show. If you're going to watch blood and guts, gore stuff all the time, it's not going to help you get a good night's sleep. And so the same holds true as if you're feeding your brain with a bunch of Facebook spewers about how terrible everything is and how awful life is and how we're not in control of our own feelings, then you're going to start to feel that way because that's the media you are taking in.
Can I make an admission? People like that, I keep them as a Facebook friend and check in when I want, but I hide their feed. I can't take this anymore.
Yeah, see, now that's even more, what you just said is really important. It's not just that you are hiding them, but part of our business, our economics now is there is no separation of this is only my personal life and this is only my business life or, professional life. It's just not the way it is. And so if you hide me, Audrey, because I'm a spewer, you are not ever going to think of me when the perfect opportunity comes along and somebody says, we were looking for doing some comedy the night before our big presentation. You may not think of Teresa Rose because I'm hidden. You don't even see all the good stuff that I've been doing because you don't want to take that message in.
Right. That's true.
I noticed then too, when you talk about the 9 M's of mindfulness, that it's not just showing up at work. I'm going to show up at work and now I'm going to be mindful. Like as you were talking about, there's no separation between the personal and the work life. So the mindfulness really has to start from the moment your feet hit the floor, in the morning when the alarm clock goes off. Is that right?
Actually, I would say before that. I say that you become mindful the second you become conscious. And it really is about even, people that are saying, I don't have time to, which is always the excuse. I don't have time to do this. It's like, no, you have 10 minutes when you're laying in bed and you are figuring out, okay, I want to wait a little longer before I get out of bed. What are you doing with those 5, 10, 15 minutes? You can start to be mindful and start to pre-pave your day. You can mentally pre-pave your day. You can start to infuse your mindset with serotonin, with gratitude. There's lots of things you can do to be mindful before you even put your feet on the ground.
I want to loop back to something that Audrey was saying. So Audrey was talking about Facebook. So if you're a doer, I mean, how do you protect yourself and your attitude and your mindset then from the skewers when it's not Facebook? Now we're in the work environment.
Yep.
And you're dealing with your direct reports or your indirect reports or something like that. And, they're dumping on you or something like that. What can you do as a manager then to one, protect yourself and to two, perhaps change their mindsets?
Well, before even protecting yourself and changing their mindsets, the first thing would be to establish a very consistent and solid mindfulness program for yourself. So are you getting up every morning and moving your body at least enough so you feel good? Are you spending some time in meditation to quiet your mind and still your mind so you can be more focused at work? Are you eating healthy breakfast, or are you scarfing something from McDonald's? So the first step of a leader is to actually start to strengthen your body, strengthen your mind, strengthen your spirit, strengthen your ability to stay grounded and centered amidst craziness, okay? Because that will sort of protect you by not letting things get to you, right? So those are the things that really are the key. And then what I would recommend is that you start socializing these kinds of things because believe me, people are feeling the same. Everybody's feeling the same way. Everybody's overwhelmed, super stressed out, got too much stuff going on, distracted, lack of focus. They're negative. Their Facebook feed looks the same way. So start doing it within, practice those things within, and then start putting a plan in place that you can actually socialize with your team, get them trained up on it, have practice times for it, maybe even have, portions of the week, one portion of the week where you have it and you just start to talk about those things, and you do some quiet time and you let them start to practice these things. And then once that starts to happen, their mood will naturally change. I mean, you don't need a whole lot of, super angry Buddhist monks.
I've never actually seen one of those.
What does that look like? No,
they're pretty chill dudes. So, the idea is to, you can change your culture first by changing it from within, and then instituting these practices and offering these practices so your employees are happier too.
Well, Lee is big on saying, you can't fix it unless you own it. Right. So,
yeah.
Is this a more kinder, gentler way of educating your team on, looking at maybe what they've been posting in a different way? Wow, that really does sound kind of not so great. Maybe
you know what? I'm not a big fan of that kind of stuff because, the last thing that you want to do is kind of go backwards or make them feel shame or feel, that they're being violated in some way from a privacy perspective or being policed in some way. It's really about changing the culture from a positive place.
Okay.
And what will happen is if you start doing these these are fundamental practices, every part of their life will start to change, including their posts. They're going to be happier. They're going to feel better. B, they're going to communicate better with the people that they love. They're going to be able to weather the storms, the many, many storms that we have. And they're fundamentally, those posts will change because they're just offshoots of how we believe, what we believe, what we value. I try to put out there good things because even if I don't feel good, I want to feel good. And so that wanting to feel good is like, I know the very first step of that is for me to present myself as good. My mom used to say, fake it till you make it. And sometimes that's what we need to do.
Well, sometimes though you do have to use an example though from recent history though, when you're correcting behavior and be able to say, okay, when this happened or whatever, this made people feel this way.
Yeah.
Instead, why not try this?
Right.
So,
yeah, and in a one-on-one capacity, absolutely, that's appropriate. Yeah.
Never publicly, no.
Not a group situation.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I had understood your question to be. I'm sorry, Audrey. I thought it was a group thing, but yes, one-on-one, absolutely coaching. You can give them specific. In fact, I favor specifics because specifics you can really see, and it doesn't turn into opinion. It doesn't turn into he doesn't like me or she doesn't like me. It's right there, right in black and white.
Got it. We've got just a few minutes left. Mindfulness is also part of being a good stand-up comedian and being a better speaker. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Well, as you know, some of the coaching that I do, I work with speakers on helping them crystallize their message. So what is, being really clear about what you're speaking on. But the other part about it is the audience. Speakers forget about the audience. Let's create something that is a dialogue as opposed to just a monologue. And in order to have it be a dialogue and be really in tune with the conversation that you're creating every single time, you need to be present with them. You need to be able to be skilled at being an intensive listener and noticing the room and recognizing where things light up. So that's what I mean by that, is that the more present you can get, because I don't know about you, but I've seen enough speakers that are on autopilot. They just do the same jokes at the same time. And it's, here's the, requisite tearjerker moment. And it's like, please, ho-hum. Nobody cares. Because they can feel that there's nothing there. They don't feel the energy. They don't feel the heart. They don't feel the spirit. And that's where when you come from a mindful perspective, that's where that juju is. That's where that energy is that the audience crave.
So Teresa, what's the last thing you put in your purse?
Wow. It depends on the night, Lee.
You want to see if
No, it's like you did this exercise for us in New York or whatever.
Yes,
we all went around the room and we had to,
that was a fun exercise we did at the C-Suite Network.
I can answer that. I had just an acid tablet I took just before the show.
I'll be honest with you. One of the last things that I usually put in before is a Post-it note of what my, like a stand-up set or a keynote I'm going to do or anything like that. I can usually put it on a Post-it note. So that's usually the last thing I put in my purse.
What was great about the exercise for those people that have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, which is just about everybody, which would be, it's like we went around the room and we did like a little rhyming thing where I'm going to put some weed in my purse, or I'm going to put a deed in my purse or something like that.
Yes.
And we all went around the room and we all had to come up with something that kind of rhymed or something like that with with that. And what was kind of cool about it was fun, but what was fun about it is like then we all tried to come up with something clever or funny or something like that. But then it was it was audience participation. It was a great icebreaker, and it's exactly what you're talking about as the fact that we raised the energy of the room and we got everybody involved. And so it wasn't just like, oh, let's sit down and listen to Teresa drone on for 30 minutes or something like that. It brought the energy and got people engaged.
But here's the key. The key is it has to be meaningful play. So when we were talking about purse in my purse, I'm going to put it in my purse. It was about what other ways can you look at yourself and the gifts, talents, and services and products that you have and look at them in a different way, right? So while we were still being fun and engaging, it was still about how can that particular audience leverage their skills in ways they haven't thought of before.
Yeah, it was terrific. And I encourage everyone to please hire this woman for stand-up.
You hear that?
We were in the room. It was fun. It's your podcast. I did not mention the podcast. You're a fellow podcaster on the C-Suite Radio Network, Mindful Performances. So if you want to learn more about this, get the book off our website, teresarose.com. But also, the podcast is a great tool as well.
Yes. Yes. I go through one strategy every single episode.
There you go.
And really do a deeper dive, and it's fun too.
Hey, who's your favorite comedian?
Oh boy. My favorite comedian is John Mulaney. Oh my gosh, John Mulaney. Oh he's a bit of he's not one of your top I don't want to say that. He is top tier in my life, but he's not a household name yet, but he will be. And I just love he's an intelligent, very, very, very sharp comedian. So he's my favorite.
Would you say he's mindful?
I would say he's very mindful for at least what I've seen.
Oh, he's
great. Yeah.
Check him out.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Sounds good. Well, thanks, Teresa. Everybody, please subscribe, rate, and review the Manage Smarter podcast. Teresa, send it to everybody you've ever met in your entire life and help us out.
I sure will. I absolutely will.
And everybody, just please spread the word. Help us make the podcast more popular. And please check out Teresa's as well. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks a lot.
Thank you both. I appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Yes.
Take care.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more great information at salesfuel.com.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.